plenty of space up here for folks in the back. Grab a drink at the bar, come on back. We're going to jump into the TechNexus Venture Collaborative Innovation Showcase for all things outdoors. Real quick, my name is Madelyn Rutter. I'm the Senior Director of Collaboration at TechNexus Venture Collaborative. We're based out of Chicago, which is one of the reasons we love showing up for Midwest House because, you know, we're kind of homegrown in Chicago in the Midwest. But super, super excited for Outdoor Day because it is in our DNA and our lifeblood of investing and promoting collaboration within the outdoor recreation ecosystem. We've been doing it for many, many years, working with not only some of the largest outdoor recreation manufacturers, brands, companies, and organizations in the world, but also really, really impactful entrepreneurs and founders building in this space because it is an industry that's super ripe for evolution and really ripe for disruption. So we're going to kick things off with our showcase with a panel that's really focused on emerging leaders and emerging innovators in the space. And we're going to showcase those folks. I'm going to bring them on up, both from the entrepreneurial side of things, but then also the investing. So Cristin, Jonathan, Sam, Matt, come on up. We'll kick off the conversation. Woo! Can I get a woo? I gotta say, for me too, I'm like firing on all cylinders this morning because we went out. A few of us went out on the water with Captain Experiences here, which you'll hear more about them. Man, what a day! Like, what a way to start the day, just out in nature and catching some really big fish. So it really keeps the adrenaline kind of going for a while. So. Okay, I'm going to kick things off. Really just want to kind of go down the line here. I want you all to introduce yourselves. And because we're talking about this really dynamic industry of the outdoors, I'm sure there's a passion and a reason and a storied history, if you will, on why you even build in this space. So kind of, Sam, let's start down with you. Tell us who you are, what you're doing, and why you're doing it.
Yep, I'm Sam. I'm the founder and CEO of Grounded. We are electrifying the outdoor industry with electric RVs. So we are, our first product, our flagship product, is a 250-mile range, smart, customizable electric camper van. And eventually we want to build sort of a global outdoor recreation brand with a kind of an ecosystem of technology products that make living and working in the outdoors more enjoyable. And just in terms of like how I got into this, I guess, I had never been an RV person before, and during COVID, I was living in New York, everything shut down, decided to start looking at RVs as a way to like travel and work remotely, and was pretty dissatisfied with the RVs I saw on the market, like lack of technology, lack of customizability, design was sort of outdated, so decided to build my own camper van. Lived in it for about 6 months, worked remotely full-time from the van, and then decided to build a company around that.
Cool. Awesome. Matt?
Yeah, so I'm Matt Oesterie. I'm the founder and CEO of Ramble. We are building amazing nature-focused campgrounds across the United States, starting in Colorado, which is where we're based out of. The way that I came to this will probably be a similar theme, but when COVID hit, I was 10 years into a previous startup that I had founded. And although I was passionate about what we were doing from a business standpoint, I wanted to build a company that I was really personally passionate about. And so I've been camping and backpacking, and then as I got older, got into mountain climbing and kind of various other pursuits. Has really been my personal passion. During COVID, my wife and 3 kids and I took a trip where we rented an RV and drove from California, where we lived for a long time, to Indiana and back. And the whole time we stayed in what I would describe as parking lot campgrounds, which to me was not what we were looking for from a nature standpoint. So I came back, and that was the initial genesis that led us to found Ramble, where our goal is to serve folks that either are staying in tents or booking tent sites with vans, off-grid RVs and trailers and so on. Last year, about 23% of households in the US went tent camping or booked a tent site at least once. And so we're really trying to make a much better experience for those folks than something you get kind of in a parking lot next to an interstate.
Awesome.
Cool. Hey everybody. My name's Jonathan Newar, co-founder and CEO of Austin-based Captain Experiences. So we're a platform for booking outdoor sports guides. Started in fishing and then recently expanded into hunting. We've quickly become the largest platform for booking fishing trips in the US. So it's been really exciting. How I got into this, passionate about fishing, grew up fishing on the upper Texas coast, near Houston. One day I was working in Houston, company I was working for sold. I said, hey guys, we always talk about it, let's finally book that fishing trip. They said, great job, Jonathan, you just nominated yourself to book a solo trip. Yeah, that's how it goes. So from there I said, okay, you're on, how hard can it be? Googled Galveston fishing charters, and it was that quintessential founders moment, that slap in the face, where I just said, hey, if you can book an Airbnb or call an Uber, why am I playing phone tag with all these guides? So drove down to the docks on a whim, met with these guides, onboarded our first guides, drove the opposite way here to Austin, teamed up with my co-founder Addison on the product side, we launched CaptainExperiences.com in March of 2020 at the height of the pandemic. That didn't go too well, we stuck with it, and we've partnered with over 1,500 guides across the US and internationally, and feel like we're just getting started. Our mission is to unlock the outdoors across all outdoor sports and geographies. So hunting, fishing, hiking, rock climbing, skydiving, rafting, you name it, that's what we're after.
Awesome. And Cristin, you're bringing a little bit of a different point of view from the investor side of things, kind of that macro investing side. So tell us about your role and how it intersects with outdoor rec.
So as Maddie said, I'm a director on the venture investment side at TechNexus. So that means that I work closely with our corporate partners that are recreational manufacturers. And a big part of what we're looking to do is build strong relationships with leading entrepreneurs who are innovating in and around the outdoor rec space. So how do we actually elevate and make consumer experiences better? How do we get access to new markets, new consumers, new customers, new partnerships? And so I've had the unique experience of working with all of these founders on stage today and trying to see how they're looking to improve and better the outdoors. I personally grew up in Florida, so I've fished my whole life, and some of the things that we've talked about and we'll talk about during the panel today are things that we've experienced, having different guides who cancel at the last minute. How do we improve that experience? And so thinking about the overall ecosystem of hiking, camping, RVing, fishing, all of these activities that interconnect, how can we help you grow and thrive in partnership with corporate partners that are focused on growing that pie is a big part of where we come in at TechNexus.
Awesome. So I heard a couple themes when y'all were introducing yourselves, and there's definitely this COVID trend, right? Like this feeling of, we all kind of all heard it, even as consumers, this big push to get outdoors, kind of build your business in the height of some of that. I'm curious, do you guys think that from an outdoor engagement perspective that we truly are in this new normal of heightened engagement, people getting outdoors and staying outdoors? Or is there the potential for this snapback or fluctuation of we're kind of coming on the other side of it and like a downturn? Jonathan, I'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. So, I think, it's obvious in all of our stories, that COVID was a huge, catalyzation, moment for the outdoors. But I think what we're seeing now in the reports is that, that level of participation and everything, and the interest is, maybe coming down. The participation is coming down as everyone returns to their lives, but the interest is still there. And so what that means is that the casual outdoor consumer is in, and I think that plays to, what we're all trying to do, working, off the grid, in an RV or at a campsite, or, fishing every now and again with a guide versus, having the time to go fishing every day on your own boat. So I think it's more of a casual thing now.
Great. Matt, a commentary on that?
Yeah, I think we've seen a couple things in this area. One, interestingly, is that it was recently estimated by McKinsey that up to 30% of what people do for their job will be outsourced to AI between now and 2030. It's a fairly aggressive forecast. But kind of one of the byproducts of that people are proposing is that may increase the amount of outdoor recreation that's happening. Also, we're just seeing that the shift to remote work that COVID created probably pushed the ability to do that forward by 1 to 2 decades faster than otherwise would have happened. And you can see this reflected in camping trends. Like over the last 5 years, the percentage of people that say that they that Wi-Fi connectivity to some degree matters to them when they're in the outdoors, went from 14 to 40% in a 5-year span. So I think that trend is also happening. And also just what we're seeing is that there is an increasing backlash against social media and spending time kind of locked inside your house and kind of doom scrolling on your phone and the impacts of that and its effects on depression levels, particularly for children and so on. So I think if we look at all those things together, what we're seeing is there certainly was kind of a one-time pop in outdoor recreation, but the numbers as recently that's come out kind of last month are showing that trend's continuing. Then you have this groundswell of these overall macro effects that are likely to persist over the next kind of 10 to 20 years that makes us very optimistic about outdoor recreation.
Great. Yeah. Cristin, go ahead.
There was a surge in activity and growth in the active participant base during COVID in 2020. But over the past 3 years, roughly 15 million new participants have entered the space. And I think what's really interesting is over the past 8 years, there's been consecutive growth. So even if the growth has slowed a little bit relative to that peak burst of activity, new activity in 2020, we're still seeing like an increase in base. And so I think it's actually quoted that roughly 170 million Americans have participated in some sort of outdoor rec activity, which is more than 1 in 2. It's about 55%. So I think the fact that that base is continuing to grow definitely shows that there's attention and persistence in the growth in this area.
Great. You guys, with all of the companies that you're building, there is some intersection with technology, whether it's in the platform, the booking, a way to connect even and be off the grid. What are the cultural or technological trends that are really driving that kind of outdoor and connection technology piece? Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, obviously there's the electric piece, so I think sustainability is a big part of that, right? So technology now today allows outdoor adventure to be more sustainable than it ever was before, because we can use electrification to, not emit fumes and carbon into the atmosphere. And then on the connectivity side, I think like there's this generational shift that's happening in general with outdoor recreation and RVing in particular, and more people, younger people, people who maybe you didn't traditionally think of as buying an RV or spending, wanting to spend time RVing and that type of thing, are much more interested in doing this type of stuff. And to this kind of new group of people, connectivity is more important. Like the Wi-Fi stat that we shared a minute ago. So I think that remote work is a part of that story, but it's not the whole story. It's and there's a way to like be outdoors and have access to connectivity and still like disconnect too.
Yeah, that's what I was it feels like when you really think about that intersecting piece, there's this tightrope that has to be walked between outdoors and disconnection, and that's kind of why you're doing it, and connection. How do you think about, again, that just like razor's edge of meeting the connected consumer where they are now, but knowing why it is they're probably getting into the great outdoors anyways?
Yeah, but if I could share one more thing. One of my favorite little anecdotes is in Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. The author talks about how like when you're driving in a car, it's like watching the world through a TV, but when you're riding on a motorcycle, it's like you're experiencing the world. And I think about that with RVs, because you go to some of these RV parks and people are like inside their RV and like all the doors are closed, and if you look through from the outside, you can see the lights on. It looks like a home living room inside, and they have their TV on, and it's a complete disconnection from nature, even though ostensibly that's like why they went to this campground in the first place. So I do think that like at least at Grounded, we're trying to design in a way that like integrates people with nature. Like for us, we want people to feel a part of nature that they're going out to experience, and not like cocoon themselves into what is essentially the same as their house that they left.
Yeah. Matt, how are you thinking about it with Ramble?
Yeah, I mean, overall what's great is that just the growth in the number of people that are camping more is increasing at an astonishing rate. Like over the last 5 years, the percentage of people that camped at least 3 times a year went from 32 to 48%. So the people that are engaging in the outdoors are doing a lot more of it. I think that the trend toward increasing kind of virtual work and so on to your common is a bit of a double-edged sword, so we try to be very intentional about that. At our locations, one of the things we're doing is we're actually centralizing where internet's available, so we use Starlink arrays, and then we broadcast over places where it requires you to leave your campsite and go to a central place where internet exists, and then you could do work or do something else. So we're trying to kind of avoid, part of it is, I have 3 kids, and the idea of having them like sitting on iPads at a campground is like just ridiculous to me. And so we're trying to kind of have that intentionality between having access, but also trying to have you be able to enjoy the nature when you're out there.
Yeah, I mean, what we say at Captain is that our mission is to unlock the outdoors, and so we really view our online platform as, sort of that doorway. And then once you step through that doorway, the technology enables you to get out there, like we did this morning. And then once you scan the QR code to meet your guide and get on the trip, you put your phone in the dry box and you have fun. So, we took the phone out to get pictures and videos and stuff, and that's fantastic. That really allows you to sort of like relive that moment, in perpetuity. But yeah, it's really about getting out on the boat, putting the phone down, talking to friends and family and the guide and learning and just being sort of in nature without the technology, without the screens. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, doing it this morning and really like starting the day that way, it was just so refreshing. I feel like my dopamine levels are still so high already. Cristin, from your perspective as a venture investor focused on investing in companies in the outdoors, how do you think or evaluate startups with, what kind of business models or emerging technologies are you seeing, especially from the venture perspective?
Yeah, well, I think a big part of what we're looking at from the venture perspective is how do you integrate technology to produce a frictionless experience. So as you're thinking about using the QR code as a way to help activate and just streamline the process of going fishing, I think especially what's interesting for us as investors is thinking about how do you unlock new market demographics and the next generation consumer. If that next generation consumer who's experiencing the outdoors for the first time, whether that's camping, taking out an electric RV, or going fishing maybe for the first time, how do you gravitate towards that consumer? And in addition to thinking about ways to incorporate technology that will help improve that consumer experience, I think there is a part that plays to like content and community and commerce. Like how do you bring those 3 legs of a stool together to help connect with those types of consumers. So I think it's really just thinking about how do you integrate technology in a way that reduces the friction and enhances the overall experience.
Yeah. Sam, this question's for you, thinking about Grounded and what you're building, probably, based on what I've seen of the product and really going after this totally new demographic than a traditional RV owner, it seems. And as we think about this new generation of outdoor enthusiasts and adventurers and what it is that they're looking for, like how are you really kind of keying in to tailor that product for this emerging, this person that's maybe never even RV'd before, like kind of breaking down that barrier to entry?
Yeah, honestly, just mostly building the product for myself, I would say. I think I was one of those people. I had never, I don't even think been inside an RV before I started looking at them during COVID, before I decided to build my own camper van. And so, just kind of coming at it with a fresh perspective of like, here's what I want, and I know people like me who would want the same things. The other piece of it for what Grounded is doing is customizability is a big part of what we're doing. So it turns out that in the kind of RV world and camper van world, that customers care a lot about customization. There's a really strong DIY camper van outfitting community. Even people who like buy $200,000 RVs from Winnebago or Thor usually end up doing some kind of work on them themselves to upgrade it or improve it. So there's like tons of customization that happens, and so we're trying to enable that customization at scale and build that into the product itself. And so that way it also like increases accessibility, because instead of just having one floor plan that's the same for everyone, it's like built into the product that the customers can choose what they want in the product.
Great. Okay, this question's for everyone. So today is International Women's Day. Yay! Woo! International Women's Day. As leaders in industry that have historically been very male-dominated, how are you thinking about building your companies and the products and services and solutions truly encompassing an inclusive experience for all, regardless of gender identity or anything?
Yeah.
Jonathan, please start.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, and I guess this is somewhat of a hot take, but starting a company, everyone says, hey, you need to find your persona and really zero in on that persona. We've never done that at Captain. We don't have any sort of persona. We go out there and we market to everyone as equals, and I think the takeaways from that are really interesting. So actually about 40% of our trips to date have been booked by women. And that's better than I think the participation trends in the outdoors, and I think a little bit better than the venture industry, right? So I think we're doing all right. Yeah. But I mean, for me personally as well, we went out on a trip with one of our female captains, Captain Cheryl. I ended up catching my biggest redfish ever, personal best, and yeah, it was a big TikTok thing that we did, and it really took off. So just trying to highlight people of all sorts of backgrounds, regardless of what that looks like.
Great. Matt?
Yeah, so stepping back, 57% of global travel trips were booked by women. So women are more likely your customer than males overall, if you just kind of look at the travel industry in general. We're also seeing that diversity is increasing in camping specifically at a remarkable rate. 2020 was the first year where the demographics of people that go camping finally matched the US Census data. And if you actually look at people that are coming that are new to camping, it's actually far more diverse than the average American population. So I think whether it's through empowering women through camping or folks that typically would not be represented in the outdoors, it's actually both good as a human being and good business sense to make sure that you're effectively marketing to those folks. We look at this in two different ways. One is internally as a business, making sure that we have people making decisions as a company that represent our customers. So the head of all of our operations at the company is female. Our head of marketing is female. We actually, and this was a surprise when we went out and did the search, but both of the camp hosts for our locations this year are both female. So in terms of thinking about how we run the company and kind of the interaction points that people have with the company, particularly the camp hosts, that's one way, is to make sure that there's good representation on the company side. The other is on marketing, just to make sure that when we show photos of people, that when you see those photos, you feel like this is a place where you're included and you belong. And so being very kind of intentional and methodical about like who shows in your ads, what language are you using, is this language approachable to people, depending on who they are. And so being very thoughtful about that, such that when somebody sees an ad or a landing page or some photos of somebody engaging in the product that you have, having them see that photo and be like, oh, this is me, I belong here. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like I said, a generational shift that's happening, especially in the RV world, and again, customizability is a big part of how I think we make it accessible to lots of different people, and so yeah, it's been cool to just get lots of different customers of all types, reaching out to us, and people who traditionally have never RV'd before, who are interested in what we're building and experiencing it for the first time. A bit like Rivian, I think the majority of Rivian buyers, at least at some point, had never owned a pickup truck before. So it's like opening up to a whole new segment of consumers.
Yeah. And then Cristin, for you, so fishing, camping, RVing, you get to zoom way out and kind of see even a broader landscape. From your perspective on corporate venturing, how are you seeing kind of this inclusion really play out in this sector?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things at TechNexus is we have the beauty of picking and choosing who we work with and who we partner with. We've heard a lot on the entrepreneurial side, but on our corporate partner side, we work closely with Thor Industries, the world's largest manufacturer of RVs, and they're a core sponsor of Together Outdoors, which is a huge initiative focused on elevating and increasing accessibility to underrepresented individuals in the outdoors. So I think that's kind of, that's who we work with, that's what they represent, that's what they stand for, and they're looking to shift and increase accessibility across the outdoor rec space. Brunswick is another one of our partners, and they're also a partner with this initiative. So I think just knowing that at the corporate level that leading industry experts know that this is it's a problem, it's something that they're looking to change, they're looking to make the outdoors more accessible and inclusive, and I think we're proud to partner with groups that are focused on that.
Great. Cool. We're going to switch gears a little bit. Let's kind of tug on that corporate angle a little bit. Jonathan, in the fishing industry, there's lots of big legacy players. I mean, it's been around for God knows how long. You probably do. Like, what was big incumbents in fishing missing that really Captains was able to step in and create this experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the exact word, the experience. Like we've been talking about these incumbents, these manufacturers, and so I think a lot of their focus is on the product, and I think really it's about what you do with that product, and I think, all of the reports are saying millennials are more interested in experiences than things. There's, so much data on that. And so I think that's where, there's an opportunity, and I think the incumbents miss that a bit. It's not about that fishing lure, it's about how that fishing lure enables you to get out with friends and family and have that experience. So I think that's where, we can all come in.
Yeah. Matt, kind of similarly in camping, is there anything that the big guys don't get that, that's what you're set out to disrupt, and why are they missing it?
Yeah, so in the campground space, it's my opinion that a lot of what you see is kind of carried over from the 1960s when 2 of the 3 largest brands in the US were originally founded. At the time, there was no internet. Highways were not like 12-lane interstates, they were like 2-lane roads. The interstate system didn't really exist in a lot of the US already. And so a lot of what you see in terms of existing campgrounds has kind of been a carryover from that, which is let's put 15 sites per acre and put it right on the interstate, and like that's going to service the customer. I think there is a customer for which that still is a really good fit, particularly if you're in the middle of kind of traveling a long distance and you're trying to stop for the night. But what we're really focused on is how do we actually try to make the experience better for folks that don't want to sit inside of something the entire time they're there, and they're going to be in a tent, or they're going to be in a pull behind or a trailer or even a large Class A, and give them the experience to actually feel like they're in nature. And that's not something that right now existing players are focused on. The biggest move happening right now in the campground space, interestingly, is driven largely by the goal to increase the average daily rate of campgrounds bookings. And so you're seeing increasingly these kind of like tiny homes and glamping accommodations being kind of shoved into the existing campgrounds. It's convenient because they have walls, so you can put them closer to each other than you can put campsites. And so kind of the industry is moving even more in that direction, and we're trying to go the other way. But again, I think that's something we see is really supported by, and for example, if you look at the websites of the leading Thor brands, they're showing their products not there. They're showing them out in a beautiful field, and somebody's fishing next to a stream, or they're increasingly advertising off-grid capability. So I think it's something that also the large players on the product side really understand really well, but the campground space itself hasn't really caught up yet, and so we're trying to expedite that.
Cool. And then Sam, kind of conversely, as you're kind of building Grounded from the ground up, what are things that you kind of look to those players that have been around a while that you admire, or that can really unlock new opportunities for you through partnership or collaboration?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's good and bad, with the legacy players.
Hot takes.
I feel like that's not even that hot of a take.
Warm take.
Lukewarm take.
Lukewarm take.
The big RV companies are assemblers. They don't make really anything. They don't make the furniture. They don't make the electronic components. They don't make the chassis. So they're sort of like sourcing these components from different places. A lot of them from the same 1 or 2 leading component suppliers in the industry, and then they're sort of slapping them all together in a warehouse. And so I think as a result of that, you see pretty limited margins, and also kind of a limited consumer experience, because things are not necessarily integrated in the best way. So that's sort of where we're trying to iterate and kind of bring together the whole experience, both on the manufacturing and the actual product side a lot more. But again, obviously there's a lot of things they do really well. They do have pretty robust manufacturing processes in some regards in Elkhart, Indiana. and I think on the sales channel side, like the whole dealership distribution, has worked really well for them, obviously, for a long time. And that's how most of the RVs are sold today. So, right now we're selling direct to consumer, but we are looking at sort of expanding to dealership distribution in the future, just as the big RV companies do.
And Cristin, in your experience, because you see both sides kind of similar to me and the role at TechNexus, what works really well when corporates collaborate with ventures?
Yeah, I think a big part of corporates working with entrepreneurs is exploring the many different pathways to collaboration. So what could that look like? What is the art of the possible? Is it co-branding? Is it a new channel partnership? Is it white labeling a solution? We're looking at quite a few different types of entrepreneurs here that could have many different types of relationships with our corporate partners. I think a good example would be like Guggen partnering with Brunswick and having kind of that interconnection between when you're boating and fishing and what types of rods and reels you're working on and using. So being able to kind of pull together within our ecosystem all of these different types of partnerships and then exploring ways that you can help connect the dots to expand into new markets, touch new consumers.
Cool. As we spend the last couple minutes here just wrapping up, thinking about the vastness of this sector and all of the things that it encompasses, anything kind of burning on your mind or bold predictions of what you think is next in the next 3 to 5 years? Like, where do we go from here in these industries, the broader one at large? Like, what kind of keeps you up at night as you think of building in the rec space?
I think it's just technology, and just staying at the forefront, So obviously every panel this year at South by is going to be talking about AI and and that technology, and I think there's really exciting ways to apply all of that to the outdoors. Obviously at Captain we don't view ourselves as an AI company, but just like we implement software or any of these other tools to make ourselves a better, more efficient business, we're going to leverage AI, and the cutting edge top tools there. And so we're already starting to do that in terms of how we match our adventures with the best guide for them. It's just a really exciting frontier.
Matt, Sam, anything to add?
Yeah, I think that this in part addresses another question I know you'd mentioned you might ask, but we're seeing an interesting trend right now where you have the fact that there's a lot of continued growth in the outdoor space, but the economy right now is in kind of a weird spot for outdoors businesses. We had a very heavy level of exuberance in the venture space between kind of 2020, 2021, which then saw a pretty severe pullback after that. And so on the macro side, this is not the easiest time to start a venture-backed company or to start a business in the outdoor space. And so I think the advantage of this is that will catch up shortly. Like, we're finally starting to see, consumer businesses not trading for cash balance on the public exchanges, and we're starting to just kind of see a turnaround in terms of people being more excited again about investing in high growth businesses. And so I think the fun thing that will happen is over the next kind of 3 to 5 years, that time horizon, you're going to finally get the economy to kind of get back where it's really interested in this exuberance around investing in businesses, combined with the continued growth you're actually seeing in the outdoor space. And so I liken this to like, Airbnb and Newar were both founded in the bottom of the recession in 2008, 2009. But because they were able to start a business at that time, they then came out in the next wave in a really strong position. And so that's where I think that the next couple of years might not be easy for outdoors businesses, just because, again, consumer businesses right now are not considered to be sexy by investors. But as that turns over the next couple of years, I think that'll really change things for people that are in the outdoor industry. Yeah.
Cool. Sam, anything to add?
Maybe a slightly hot take to end it on.
Ooh,
I
sizzle.
think that everybody has like a little bit of doomsday prepper in them, and there's like varying degrees of that. So the idea of like having a vehicle that is all electric, solar powered, your home on wheels, so you could take it anywhere. There's like something about the self-reliance aspect of that I think is appealing, and I think like the reaction to like the Cybertruck, as an example, is related to that.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so to wrap up here, we're at Outdoors Day at Midwest House. I'm sure there's a lot of levels of experience out in the audience today, from experts to totally outdoor curious. So let's appeal to some of those newbies and say, I've never done it before. How do I get started fishing, camping, RVing? What's your expert guidance for someone that wants to do it but doesn't know where to start?
Yeah, I mean, shameless plug, I guess, but I would say book a guided trip in whatever it is, and I think it can be intimidating to approach these guides or to call them, if you're a beginner and you don't know exactly what to ask, and so with Captain Experiences, we're trying to make it more approachable in terms of understanding the personality of your guide and the tactics and all of these different things, so that you can book with confidence, get out there, and then just like you were asking Jake this morning, what rod should I use when I go home, to my lake house? Those little, this was even just an hour-long trip, and now you're, hooked, pun intended.
That is true. Matt, camping.
Likewise, I'll say you should stay to Ramble. That's the best way to have success.
Right.
This is my shameless plug question.
But I think that the key to successful camping is a couple things. The first just being preparation. So being prepared to go out, having the right gear, bringing the right food, kind of being there, bringing the right people you actually want to be kind of sitting around a campfire with and having a good time, I think is really the key to having a successful time camping.
Great.
Yeah, I would say I'm not going to plug Grounded, actually. If you don't like tent camping because it's like not comfortable and you don't want to do all that, I think that's like why camper vans are awesome. The bed's like already made for you. You don't have to do anything. And sites like RVZ, Outdoorsy, RV Share, it's just like booking an Airbnb. You can find one that's right near where you live and go take it out for a couple days.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Cristin, what do you think? How do you get started?
Well, I think that, maybe this is one of my hopeful takes instead of hot takes. So the convergence of outdoor rec activities is widely known. And I think as we're talking about camping and hiking, almost 100% of those who hike participate in some other outdoor rec activity. Yeah. Same with camping, I think it's 80-something% participate in some other type of outdoor rec activity. So I guess my hopeful take would be that as we're seeing innovations in all of these different types of outdoor spaces, that there is a convergence of that activity even within the ecosystem that we're building. I think I would love to be able to see someone take a Grounded RV to a Ramble campsite and book a Captain Experiences guided tour, in the same weekend experience. So I think having access to platforms like what these guys are building is part of what helps make it easier to get out into the outdoors, and then hopefully having this positive consumer experience. Maybe it's your first time experiencing something new. Hopefully that will kind of spur and continue that flywheel of activity that keeps people coming back and recreating. So I guess that's my hopeful take instead of my hot take, is that you're able to experience all this together, not just on stage with us today, but yeah, in general.
Awesome. Very cool. Questions from the audience? We can maybe take one or two if there's any. Otherwise, okay, we have a question. Do we have a mic, or did I just throw everything off by Q&A? Let me see. Sorry, I went rogue. Sorry, folks.
We can hear and then repeat it, maybe.
Okay, so if anyone wanted to go do something in the outdoors tomorrow, where do they find where to go, what to do? Discovery, I guess, for these things. CaptainExperiences.com.
Yeah.
Could do it today.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess in terms of like our go-to-market strategy, we've really tried to, rank highly on Google, because, a lot of people just turn to Google these days. And you go back to my problem statement, I Googled Galveston fishing charters, and that's when, that light bulb went off. And so, yeah, that's where we try to meet a lot of people in their journey. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, I'm not sure if there's a real sort of home-based resource.
I would say All Trails. All Trails is really great for finding hikes in cool places, and people rate them and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it is just Google as that like very, very first thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And ChatGPT.
And ChatGPT.
Yeah, right.
Where can I go camping? Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone. That's gonna wrap up our Emerging Innovators panel in the outdoors. I applaud you for coming out here.
Yeah.
Yes. And then I will keep up with the shameless plug. So Captain Experiences is doing guided fishing trips all day today, right here. It's walkable to get to. They have a sign-up table in the back. Go get out on a boat, have some fun, catch a fish, get a selfie. It's a lot of fun. And then a grounded RV is floating around here in the neighborhood as well if you want to check out the grounded RV as well. So hang out, come talk to our panelists. Thank you. Stick around. We do have another conversation coming up next. Cool. Thanks, everyone.